Hey everyone, it's Maribel Blue with a new Maribel Blue Unfiltered. Today we are talking about the Golden Bachelor, and we are going to do highlights 4 and 5. Just solely the highlights. I'm not going to get into details of each episode and what happened and the whole breakdown. It really isn't important at this moment. This is Wednesday. Tomorrow is the Women Tell All. I did not watch episode 6 for the sole purpose of the element of surprise, and then also to really share authentically with you on the highlights of what happened in this episode. So if you are new, welcome. I talk everything reality TV, and I'm also including there are 2 episodes there. There's one on Lizzo, and I've been meaning to do a part 2 and I haven't gotten to it for the Unfiltered Rabbit Hole. And there's one with Doja Cat, and that was done with a girl in a plant world. I almost called her something else. I don't know what I was thinking. Anyway, those 2 Unfiltered Rabbit Holes are there. I am working on another one that I think you will truly enjoy, because it has to do a little bit with the paranormal and a little bit of voodoo. So if that gave you a little bit of a clue of who I'm going to be talking about next, then you just have to wait and find out. And if you are not new, welcome back. I love you all for supporting me on this channel. There is a lot going on in my life, so I'm just trying to do everything as best as I can, because I cannot upload every week. It just has become too impossible, especially with everything that I'm doing. But I hope that you enjoyed my last video. I did talk extensively about Kathy Karen and everything that was going on there with her and Teresa. Let's begin and let's talk about what happened in episodes 4 and 5. So before I break down the episodes, I just want to say that Trista Wren made an appearance on episode 4, which is something very exciting. Keep in mind that Trista Wren was the first bachelorette ever on this franchise. So here's Trista giving advice to the ladies about what it was like for her and Ryan, who she ended up marrying in 2003 and has been married to him ever since. So in that regard, you think about it, wow, 20 years they have been together. That goes to show you about how the show was in the beginning. I think there was some kind of validity to it, whereas now it's almost like a game for people. It's like, how many Instagram followers can they get being on these shows, as opposed to finding real relationships with somebody else? And if I call him Jerry, it's because of the spelling of his name. So my mind goes to Jerry instead of Gary. So let's talk about Gary and the relationships that he's developing with each woman. And let's start off with Ellen. Now, if we recall, Ellen had that Cinderella type date where she got dressed in different dresses and that designer. Now, let me just pause and say how ashamed I am as a person who watched all of Project Runway that I didn't recognize Michael Costello. So shame on me for not even pointing that out. Let us continue. That I can't remember off the top of my head, and retrieved her from the group and got her all dressed up for her date with Gary, which ended up in a hot air balloon. She admits to Gary that she is in love with him, but there was something about the way she said it, almost as if she was confirming an order, like from Amazon. Like, yes, that's exactly what I ordered. I don't know how genuine her feelings are, and I'm not saying that she's being fake about her feelings. Here's my thing with this whole franchise and every episode. When you are in a controlled environment, the idea is to create feelings so that there's some kind of a happy ending, so to speak. Relationships are going to outlive after the show. That is where the challenge, I should say, the challenge is going to begin after the season is over. And then you got to like remain quiet for what, 2 to 3 months after all of the shows have aired, until the couple can come out and say, hey, we're together, or say, hey, we are not together, because that has happened before in seasons past. So for me, I feel like, yes, she's saying it, but is she really feeling it? Or is she feeling it because she is right now living in this controlled environment where they're not really going outside of the mansion or wherever unless they're going out on a date. So I don't see it happening with Gary. I don't see her and him happening. But I already had written this before I had seen episode 5, so I know what happens, and I'll get to that shortly. Now let's talk about Sandra and Gary. When Sandra talks about Gary, she talks about him like how great he is. Like, he's so great. He just does everything right. Well, yeah, like he should. Like, why would you want to be with somebody that does everything wrong? Granted that I know I have in the past with shit show, but at the same time, your life shouldn't have consecutive shit shows. There should always be more good people, more good experiences in your life, as opposed to being shocked at how good Gary is or what a good person he is. Anyway, on episode 4, after the pickleball event, it was discovered that she was missing her daughter's wedding. I guess they came into some kind of an agreement that being she was already going to be on the show and the daughter already had her wedding plans, it was like, yeah, mom, just miss my wedding so that you can go and find love. I have so many issues with that. Like, if I had a child, I would not want to miss the most important day of her life. Like, how many times is that going to happen? Now, of course, joking aside, yes, there are people who get married multiple times. But in all honesty, you should just really do it one time. That's my own personal thought. That's why I have not been married yet. So who knows what's going to happen in my future? I'm just saying for me, it's best to just do it one time. So why would she miss an event like that? On that group date, Gary gives her a rose. And it was almost like when he gave Karen Kathy the sympathy rose, why would you give her a rose? You gave her a rose basically because she missed her daughter's wedding. Now people can look at it, oh, but she missed her daughter's wedding because she is looking for love. And that's all well and good. But don't give somebody a rose because you're doing her a favor for missing her daughter's wedding. So I don't see it happening with Sandra and Gary. But like I said, I've already seen these 2 episodes, so I know what happens. I'm just offering why I don't think that they were a match. Now, let's move on to Susan and Gary. Susan has been an extremely good sport about this whole season. She never had a one-on-one date with Gary. If anything, she has been there for the other women, doing their hair, fixing their makeup. And I'm saying, like, this woman is a really good woman. She's not really getting her fair share of being with Gary. Now, on episode 4, when he was taking time out to talk to everyone, he took her first aside and he gave her a gift, which was a rose quartz. And it was very, very beautiful. Y'all know I'm into crystals. I have my store Surf Box. I sell an assortment of crystals, and I'm actually working on a new line series. And I just need to put this in there because I just have to. I got stuck in how I'm putting this series together. So please bear with me. I'm going to put the link below for you to sign up to the mailing list, because this series is going to be one of the greatest that I think I've ever worked on, if I say so myself. So please be sure to sign up at surfbox.com, and I'm going to put the link over here. That way you can go ahead and log on and join the mailing list. And I actually have to update that because I want to give like an offer code to everybody so that you can use it when that series comes out. Let's go back because I digress just a little bit. Like I was saying before, I feel bad for her because she's never been on a one-on-one. She gets everybody ready for their dates, and he gives her this rose quartz gift. And I'm going to come back to that because there's something at the end that I want to address that happens after she gets this gift. Okay, let's move on to Leslie and Gary. Leslie is the one that came out of nowhere. Like similar to Sean Lowe and Catherine, like you just didn't see it coming. Catherine attended a lot of group dates in Sean Lowe's season. And then all of a sudden, she just ends up coming out like a princess. I'm sure that Sean notices her. So it makes me wonder if Gary is doing the same tactics that Sean Lowe did. I think Sean was going out with all of the women as much as he can and basically doing the process of elimination because he already had his eye on Catherine. It was just a matter of experiencing other relationships during his time so that he can reaffirm whatever it was he was feeling for Catherine. And this is what I think Gary is doing. Now, he took the words of Trista Wren, which was stop focusing on the one that you can live with and focus on the one that you can't live without. And this is very good advice. I'm sure this is how Trista Wren came to her decision with Ryan. Every time she just chopped off a guy, it was going to be Ryan in the end. It wasn't going to be anybody else. And she already knew that in her heart. This is what Gary is doing right now. If you look at the way he looks at Leslie, he has a different look in his eyes. I think about all of the other episodes. He had these dates, he was going on with them, he was having conversations with them, and he's very, very cordial. That is the one thing about Gary. He's very cordial, he's very respectful, he gives everybody time. This is what I like about this season. Nobody is getting brushed off and nobody's coming in, can I get some time with him? Because we've seen girls do shit like that. Somebody's having like a deep conversation and then somebody will come in and interrupt that whole moment. And I like that that's not what's going on here. So with Leslie, after their one-on-one date, in the next episode, which is episode 5, Gary had his first one-on-one date with Faith. And in that moment, I think Leslie realized how deep her feelings were for Gary. She was just beside herself. She was anxious. She was feeling nervous. She was shaking. She was crying. And I'm saying, oh my God, like this girl, it must have been love at first sight for her as soon as she saw Gary. It had to be. The way she was reacting is not a way that a person who doesn't care about a guy, who doesn't feel anything deep, they wouldn't react like that. And she's in love, whether she realizes it or not. I'm not sure when the Cupid hit her. If anything, I would think that she would be the one that he would pick in the end. We're going to get to that as well. Like, who are my top 2? Because like I said, I have not seen episode 6. I know how 5 ends, but I don't know how 6 begins. Now let's move on to Faith and Gary. So the beginnings are always the hardest. Faith got the first impression rose, but then it went stale as Gary explored other relationships and left Faith attending a lot of group dates. That can leave a very shitty feeling, especially when you're getting the first impression rose and then nothing happens for weeks. This could be the same format Gary is using by exploring other relationships until he maybe feels that he has more of a connection with Faith. The way I see it, Gary is enamored with these exterior qualities. She can play a guitar, she can sing, she rides a motorcycle, but is that going to be enough? Honestly, I don't see him choosing Faith as the final 2 to meet his family. And then finally, let's move on to the best of what happened between these 2 episodes. Let's move on to Teresa, Gary, and my favorite, Karen, Kathy. There's something wrong in the universe when you have a miserable person floating around talking about, you need to not upset me if you keep doing this. And you need to think about my feelings. It's almost as if when a person lives in an apartment complex and they have a designated parking spot and the neighbor gets upset because you're parking in your spot and they don't like that. And you're upsetting them because of that. And this is the perfect description of Karen Kathy. The presence of Teresa annoys her. In episode 4, after the pickleball event, Teresa confronts Karen Kathy just to make sure if they were okay. Again, she's complaining. When we were at the rose ceremony, you whispered to me how Gary went into your room to comfort you. You're not thinking about my feelings. You're not thinking about how that's going to make me feel. Why should she? She is being a very nice person and coming to you and asking you if you are okay. But apparently, that wasn't enough for her. She felt the need to degrade Teresa more. And in the process of degrading her, she said, let me give you a piece of advice, zip it. That's her famous thing. Here's the sickening part about this woman. She talks about, well, people are not going to like me, and that's okay because I give it rough, or she's truthful. There's a way of being truthful. There's a way of being forward without being an asshole. And that's basically what she is. She is very, very spoiled. She's very narcissistic. Everything is all about her world, and how other people affect her, and how you need to stop because it bothers her. There's a lot of things that bother me personally. And you know what? You don't see me going up to people and saying, hey, like some random person on the street, could you stop standing there because it's bothering me? Do you know how stupid that sounds? Like really stupid. I don't know what she's going to say in the women tell all. She's going to turn around and say, oh, well, I watch myself back and I can't believe all of the things that I said. Just stop right there. If you're going to make excuses about your behavior and be shocked about the things that came out of your mouth, you should not be, because people who behave that way always behave that way. It doesn't matter if a camera is on or not. That's her normal behavior. And Teresa looked like she was caught in a deer in headlights when Karen Kathy told her to zip it. So as Gary's having conversations with everybody, he has a conversation with Teresa and he asked her how she was doing, because clearly she was upset the night before with everything that was going on, the way Karen Kathy was coming out with her. I'm assuming the night before, maybe it's, I don't know, because I'm not there for filming, so I don't know how they film. She tells him about the conversation she had with Karen Kathy and how Karen Kathy told her to sip it.
Really nice her, and she went to me and she said, just snip it. Just snip it.
I don't know how she got zip and sip mixed up, but that's what she told Gary. Gary's in a state of shock because he's like, he doesn't understand what's going on. Now you have to think about it, right? You're thinking about senior age, golden age, whatever age you want to call it, that people have pretty much gotten over all of the immaturity. And now they're like making respective decisions or being respectful towards others. But then you think about the whole Karen's gone wild, and then you say to yourself, gee, why did I just say that? Gary is clearly upset at the fact he went out of his way to give Karen Kathy this sympathy rose. Now it's Karen Kathy's turn to have a conversation with Gary. She's walking like, I don't know how to describe it, but I'm going to play a little clip right now of her stance, the look on her face. So it's funny because I have to say that Gary called it a disturbance. And as they're walking together, she has this look on her face like, uh-oh, I messed up. But yet she's trying to look at Gary and trying to save face at the same time. After he says that he comforted her as well and gave her a special rose, Karen Kathy did not know where to put her face. Gary wasted a rose on this woman. She's showing him pictures of her father. I don't know if this woman was ever married or has children. Like, I really don't know anything about her. She showed him a picture of her and her dad, and she was talking about being strong BS, and then she starts crying, and the whole thing was an act. It was an act because she was trying to manipulate the situation so that she she can get a rose. And when confronted by Gary, who tells her, "Why are you talking to Teresa this way?" She was upset. I comforted her, and she's talking about, "Well, I don't want to hear it because I'm seeing other people are having deeper connections. There are other people who are not having the same connections, and we want to be able to have that." Look, reality is, and I'm not talking about this TV show, reality is you meet somebody, right? And at the same time, that person meets someone else. And let's say you're at a bar, he's talking to another girl, or maybe he's talking to your friend, which is even worse because maybe your friend knows that you have an interest in him. Your friend may not care that you have a vested interest in this guy, and she's going to do everything in her power to try and get him. And this is exactly what's going on over here. So Karen Kathy is realizing that she does not have a connection with Gary, and her tactics are to tear other women down, someone like Teresa, who she knows is a nice person, who she knows that she's not going to fight back, who she knows that she can manipulate her like she did in that episode. And when Teresa genuinely got upset and started crying, what did Karen Kathy say? "Don't cry." Who the hell are you? You're creating these feelings in her to make her feel bad about herself because you don't like yourself. And I'm getting upset all over again. This is such a sensitive topic for me because it goes beyond bullying. This is not just a bully situation. This is a person who clearly knows what she is doing and how she's trying to manipulate her way into a man's life just so that, I don't know, like, what is her point? Does she realize that he has loving children? Let's just say he did pick her. Do you think these girls, these daughters would like her? Probably not, especially seeing how she behaved on television. Needless to say, after all that, after Gary says he gave her, he calls it a special rose, I called it a sympathy rose, which is what it was. It was a wasted rose. And he should have never given it to her because there were other women in that episode that would have been more deserving of having a rose than Karen Kathy. So now let's go back to when Gary gave that rose quartz to Susan. Karen Kathy caught what had happened. So after Gary gives Susan this rose quartz and tells her all of the qualities that a rose quartz represents, I don't know why I'm laughing, reminds him of his wife, Tony. And that made Susan very emotional.
Okay.
So Karen Kathy, she opens up the door and she catches them kissing. And now this is a whole other element because remember, Susan was in her little group called Askin. So now what are you going to do about the S? Because there's somebody else that she just witnessed making out. They are having a connection. So now what is she going to do? Is she going to hate Susan? So Susan comes back up. She's sitting there clearly with an attitude because she already had seen what was going on between them. And she goes, "Well, what's in the box?" How dare you? Like, how nosy are you that you're asking somebody what's in the box? Meanwhile, she is the same person that sits there. "I don't want to hear about anybody else's connections. Everybody's having a connection except me."
I don't want to hear that he went into your room and comforted you.
This woman is so upside down. Like, which one is it? Do you want to know if somebody's having a connection with him or not? Which one? Because he's not having a connection with her whatsoever. Now let's move over to the end of the episode, finalizing episodes 4 and 5. And I will tell you who got the roses in episode 4 and who got the roses in episode 5. And I don't know what's going on with me. I have the form of the giggles and I can't even understand. So I'm going to try and get through this as without laughing. Yeah. Before the rose ceremony happens, Nancy goes over to talk to him and she says she feels that he has developed feelings for, like, he's narrowed it down to a certain group and he feels like she's not in that group. So he was like, "Yeah, you're right." Oh boy, how am I going to get through this episode? I have no idea what's going on, why I'm giggling like crazy because I'm trying to be serious about this, but for some reason, I just can't get through like the end of this video. Okay. Whew. All right. So he sends Nancy home. And then she goes and she's crying with everybody.
Oh God! Oh my God!
I don't know what got into me.
Whew. It's like I'm like a giggle fest over here.
All right. So now we're going to get to the rose ceremony. I don't know what's going on with me. I swear, I just had rice, a piece of chicken, a totone, and Diet Coke, and I'm drinking water, and I'm just like over here losing my shit over here laughing. So for the rose ceremony in episode 4, Sandra had gotten the group date. Leslie had gotten the one-on-one date. The rest of the ladies who got the roses were Ellen, Faith, Susan, and Teresa. No surprise that Karen, Kathy, and April did not get the roses. And I'm glad that he didn't pursue anything with April. She really was not a good fit for Gary at all. Like, I get the whole spirituality thing and the Zen thing, and she's a therapist, but she seemed to side with the wrong crowd, and that was Karen, Kathy. So, of course, that can be concerning for anyone that is pursuing a relationship, and you're basically co-signing the insane one and her behavior. Now, before I get into the rose ceremony for episode 5, I just want to say that Gary did not give out the group date rose because basically he went out with everybody just to get more time with the women. So he couldn't give out a rose. Faith did get the one-on-one rose on this episode, which meant that he would be going to her hometown. And one of the shocking things is instead of 4 ladies, it was only going to be 3, which meant that Gary pretty much made up his mind on what 3 women he was planning on meeting their families. So we already know that Faith got locked in for the hometown dates. Leslie was losing her mind in that moment, and she ended up getting a rose. Gary had 2 roses to give out. Now, the challenging part to all of this, as I was looking at all of the ladies standing there, okay? Susan, Sandra, Teresa, Ellen, and Leslie. Leslie pretty much locked in her rose in the sense that she told Gary exactly how she was feeling. He told her the same thing, unless he told her in episode 6, but he is feeling something for her. Now, Ellen, I'm confused because he said, "You're my girl." Okay. Teresa, I wasn't sure if she was going to get a rose. So in my book, the 2 women that were going to get the rose were Ellen and Leslie. Susan was going to go home. Sandra was going to go home. But in a surprise twist, what Jesse Palmer would say, after Gary gave Leslie the rose, he gave Teresa the rose, which left Ellen shocked. Like, what just happened? No clue. I will leave it at that. I've had enough giggling for one night. I don't know what that was all about. This next episode will be hometowns, and I will talk a little bit about that and what happened at the end of that episode. And tomorrow will be the women tell all. Now, I don't know how long it will take me to edit this. I'm going to do it as fast as I can. You know, I'm a perfectionist. I got to put the whole spiel of pictures in there and videos just to give you the whole full effect and experience of what I like to put in my videos together. I would love to hear your comments. What are your thoughts on this whole Golden Bachelor? Is it worth having a season 2? We'll never know until, the season is over. So with all that being said, this is Maribel Blue signing off. Always remember, be good to yourself, be good to each other. Most importantly, take care of you. Bye, everybody.